Webinar today. My name is Tanushri and I work at EMBARQ India as Executive Assistant to the Director. Today's webinar topic is From Roads for Cars to Streets for People. It will be conducted by Madhav Pai. Flow and make streets walkable and friendly. So I just want to point something before we can begin the webinar. We request you to please type in your questions in the chat box. I'll hand over the mic to Madhav now so that he can start the webinar.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining. Thank you Tanushri for the introduction. I hope you all can see my screen and I am going to start right away. Some of you might have seen this presentation. This is something I did, a sort of a shortened version of this at the Urban Age Conference in Delhi in November, and so just sort of this is a more expanded version of that presentation. So for this presentation I'll start with a case study for Mumbai. So we've always this is a case study for Mumbai. Mumbai has, as you know, has gone through a big binge on flyover building. We built over 555 flyovers since 2000. This is something we're very proud of. Then the ceiling. I remember the euphoria in the city the day the ceiling opened. I think there was a feeling that this has transformed the city and its mobility. So one question I'll ask you at this point of time, just to get a sense. So how many people do you think use the ceiling on an every day? You're going to get a poll on your screen so you can click. But just how many cars use the ceiling every day? So yeah, so the correct answer is 40,000. So 40,000 people use the ceiling every day, and in Mumbai there are a total of almost 14-15 million trips. So 40,000 for 15 million trips is a really small portion. So you can see that what was sort of proclaimed as a big success or victory for Mumbai hardly services any amount of the demand. Also, we build more of these freeways. This is the Eastern Freeway, the Santa Cruz Chembur Link Road. Again, sort of elevated facilities that have been built. So if you add up all the investment that has been made, we've spent up to 20,000 crores, 3.5 billion US dollars in the last 15 years to build these roads. The annual maintenance cost of these facilities itself adds up to 2,000 to 5,000 crores. And if you look at municipal corporations like Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, which is still a pretty big municipal corporation, their annual budget is 3,000 crores. So we are spending to maintain our roads more money than say most municipal corporations, other than 5-6. Most municipal corporations in the country. And what has that done? I mean, has it solved our mobility problem? This is what we see on the street every day, right? So I think the question I'll ask you again is this mobility or is this mayhem? And So it's very clear that the approach of building flyovers, elevated roads doesn't really solve the mobility problem. So let's really go back and see what's the demand in the first place. 42% of the people walk. This is data that MMRDA, the Development Authority, Regional Development Authority in Mumbai, conducted a comprehensive traffic and transport study. And this is their data. This is official government data. 42% people walk. And when it comes to motorized travel, so people are mostly using the train or the bus. Only 7% of the population uses cars, and another 7% use two-wheelers. So you can see the overwhelming majorities of people sort of taking the bus or the train, and the overwhelming majority of the people taking the bus and the train walk to the train or the bus to take it. I mean, you can see in the eastern suburbs, 82% of the people are or this is in the island city, 82% of the people walk to take the bus or the auto rickshaw. In the western and eastern suburbs, 61% people walk. So you can see a majority of the people are using train and bus, and this the whole sort of flyover ceiling situation only worsens these commuters. So I mean, I think there is more. I mean, what's the road? I mean, every time you build more roads, there is more demand. Okay, and this is people you say this to people, they'll say, what's the evidence? One example, and this is an extreme example. This is I-405 in Los Angeles. It's the biggest, widest highway in the world, I would say. And they started widening this. This was already 10 lanes. I think they went to 12 lanes. They spent $1 billion, and 5 years later, once the expansion was complete, the traffic was slower than when they had started. So it's very clear, this approach of building roads to accommodate more cars never works. It will just mean more roads will mean more cars, will mean more traffic, and there is absolute evidence about this. So in this context, what does this mean? I mean, here's another example from Mumbai of doing this. Some of you who are in Mumbai might recognize this. This is the flyover outside the airport. There's a lot of traffic. You can see below the flyover, and everybody thought, when we build the flyover, all our problems at this place will be solved. Well, today, this is what happens on that flyover. So the fact is, you build roads, you will attract, you'll attract cars. And now this goes back to the classic question, do we really need urban roads? I mean, does India really need urban roads? And the answer is yes, we need roads, but we need to have a very different agenda for roads when we build them inside cities. So I'm going to talk about these 3 principles for urban roads, or the urban roads agenda, right? So principle 1. So 1, we need more roads, okay? And I'll tell you what kind of roads do we need, is to complete the network. So I'll show you some images of incomplete networks. So Mumbai has for many years been great example of just north-south roads, north-south links, and very little east-west connectors. But just another very small example, we have the railway track. So what you see here is the railway line. This is the Western Railway line, and about 2 million people live between these 2 bridges that are 8 kilometers long. So anybody who needs to get from this area to anywhere outside really, so basically they need to get to the highway, they need to cross this railway line, and there is no connector basically. Previously there was one, then they built another one. So in these 7 kilometers, there is basically 2 connectors, and we need probably 5, because you can think it's 2 million people. So this is the kind of things that we need. We need to build all of these critical links in the network. Another great example, and which is much more at the city scale, is this comparison between Ahmedabad and Bangalore. Now Ahmedabad is excellent. Ahmedabad has a great network. It has almost 9 bridges, 9 or 10 bridges on the Sabarmati. So the phenomena we saw, the railway track, think of the railway track in Mumbai and the Sabarmati in Gujarat. I mean, they're the same things. You need short bridges. And in Ahmedabad there are these 9 or 10 bridges, so you'll never see congestion on the bridge. And then a fairly good network. The inner ring is complete, the outer ring is complete, all of the arterials are there. So classic indicator of a good network is the trip length. In Ahmedabad, an average trip length will be 4.5–5 kilometers. The same way, if you look at Bangalore or Hyderabad, this will be 8 or 9 kilometers. Now, Bangalore, those of you who are familiar in Bangalore will know this. If you have to go from the north of the city to the south of the city, you're going through Richmond Road, Residency Road, MG Road. Basically, you're going through center of town. You're going through the central business district of the city to go south. Now, what Bangalore really is missing is an inner ring road kind of a thing, so that not everybody going from north to south has to go to the center of city. And you know, these are beautiful streets. MG Road, which was once really the sort of also the public space of the city, has now just become, Residency Road and Richmond Road have just become these very fast one-way roads where no one wants to live, and businesses have moved out. So I think it becomes extremely important to complete the network. So I think all our cities need to have a very big program of completing the network. Now, when you talk about completing the network, there are two principles that we need to keep in mind. One is every road we build, we need to make sure we use it to optimum capacity. So you can do some short-term measures. One is improve signal coordination, so that the green lights are synchronized, and they've done some of this in Mumbai, but still I think this can be done much better to have multiple signal timings. So you have one signal timing for the peak hours, one signal timing for the off-peak hours. You're always, one, you are allowing for, computerized signals or signal operations and not police run operations. Two, you are basically completely tuning or programming the signals for the demand. So, you have different time of day signals. You can have about 4 different signal timing plans based on the morning peak hour, the afternoon hour, the evening peak hour. So making sure that, you're doing all of that. Then, this was a question right in the beginning, you absolutely have to eliminate on-street parking. On-street parking or free parking is the biggest subsidy that the city gives out. It's bigger than, the NREGA program. If you add up all of the on-street parking subsidy numbers from across the country, probably be like 100,000 crores. So on-street parking has to be eliminated. If you're very strict on eliminating on-street parking, then people will start to use the paid parkings that are built. Right now the problem is you're building paid parkings, nobody is using them because of course you can park for free on the street. So eliminating on-street parking, ensuring contiguous road widths, dealing with issues like vendors and things like that. So these are all important short-term measures that need to be done. But this will get you 10, 15, 20% improvement. The big improvement will can come if you use bus rapid transit. And this is in Mexico. This is actually what is called as Avenida Insurgentes. This is going through this is a north-south arterial going through the heart of Mexico City. And what this was a 3-lane road, basically about 2,000. Each lane carries about 2,000 persons per hour. So this road carried 6,000 persons per hour. And as Mumbai, this is still an afternoon peak hour. In the evening peak hours, this street was completely crowded and congested. And then they were thinking about how to increase the capacity, and so they invented bus rapid transit. And what bus rapid transit did, and this sort of picture shows, it tripled the capacity. So what it did, it went from 6,000 people to 19,000 persons per hour. So what you have to understand is urban streets have to be about moving people and not about moving vehicles. And this is a great example of how you can do it. So what you do is you give the best space on the road to the biggest vehicles, and then you are able to increase the capacity significantly. This has to happen on every urban arterial in our cities need to have bus rapid transit. Again, I think some more images just to give, but also it's important. Bus rapid transit, bus rapid transit is a series of features. It's not just about providing dedicated lanes like this, although that's an important feature. It's important to create level boarding, so passengers have a very good feeling about getting on and off the buses. It's about having sort of closed dedicated stations like this, big comfortable buses. It's about having safe crossings to get to the station. It's about automated fare collection so that time is not less lost on sort of paying for tickets, boarding and alighting, and to have great image, an image which is very positive and powerful. And absolutely, then it's important to do a network. You can't just do bus rapid transit in small sections. This is Mexico City. Again, you can see what is in red, which is this route 1. This was the first route that was done, and then then they did a line 2 and a line 3, and now there is 126 kilometers of bus rapid transit, very much on 30-40 meter roads like there are in our country. So something that is very doable. And of course, here's some images from Indore. So it's not like it's only done in sort of other parts of the country. Here's an image from Indore, looks exactly like the one in Mexico City. Lots of people stuck in traffic. But the point to remember is there are more people in these buses, right, than the people in these cars. So even though it looks like this part of the road is empty and this is congested, you're moving more people in this one lane than you're moving in the remaining 2.5 lanes, right? This is an extremely important feature. And Indore is like any other city. In fact, any other tier 2 city, you can see the rickshaws, the people, the shops and the corner there, lots of people just hanging out, and beer tea. So it's completely doable in our context. And look, here's and also the important thing to remember is that in Indore also you can see that all of the elements of a BRT are done. Segregated busways, stations with prepayment, buses with large doors, centralized control, and a very distinctive image. It's called iBus. Has its own branding. This green color is now very synonymous with buses and in Indore. So it's extremely important to do all of this. So this is the second principle. So to me, principle 1 was complete the network. Second was once you build these roads, you maximize the capacity. And this is the third principle that I think is extremely important. And I'm calling this the 40-40 principle. That means all roads inside a city should be designed to be less than 40 kilometers an hour and should be less than 40 meters wide. Now I'll tell you why these two things are important. One is simple. So this is a big ad campaign that was run in New York, and it's very clear. It tells you why speed limit is 30 miles per hour. 30 miles per hour translates to 48 kilometers an hour. In our context, I think 40 kilometers an hour suits fine. Basically, anything above that speed, if there is a collision, if there is there is basically a death, a fatality, right? So that's why the speed limit is what it is. So that's the other thing is, in our cities, if you look, as I showed you all of the Mumbai data, and this is true for all cities in our country, most number of people are pedestrians. And we all say we need wide footpaths, but more than wide footpaths, we need roads that we can cross, because most of the problems actually happen at the junctions. Most of the fatalities happen at the junction. And if you look at roads in our city, can you imagine an 80-year-old woman in a sari trying to cross that road? Can you imagine a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old left alone to cross the road? And I think so that's where it's extremely important to build roads that are less than 40 meters wide. If you build a road, think about 100 meters. 100 meters is sprint distance. This is where Olympians run. It's about racing. It's not about crossing. You need to really. So I think the 40 meters is actually the upper limit. Streets need to be less than 40 meters wide. Again, this is completely possible if you follow the 3 principles. Think about it. You need about. And this is the reason I'm showing you this image from New York is you can say they have narrowed the lanes from 3.5 meters to 2.75 meters, and these are big cars. What it does is it actually slows down traffic. It prevents speeding. So if you have basically if you have 2.75 meter, 2 lanes in each direction, that's 11 meters. Then you have bus rapid transit, that's about 13.75 meters. No, that's 11 meters. And then if you have bus rapid transit, that's another 10 or 11 meters. And then you have another 10 or 11 meters for footpaths and cycle tracks. So in 30-35 meters, you are able to accommodate, a good amount of traffic on urban arterials, provided you do bus rapid transit, because that's what allowing you to carry more persons per hour. So I think this becomes an important way on how you sort of design and construct urban arterials, urban roads. Then as you go to sort of smaller streets, which are inner streets and things like that, you should actually think about 20 kilometers an hour and 20 meters wide, 10 kilometers an hour and 10 meters wide. Even in 10 or 12 meters, you can actually accommodate almost 2 lanes of traffic in both directions. And at 10 kilometers an hour, basically passenger, people walking, cycles can all coexist on a 10-meter wide road designed for 10 kilometers per hour. But what does designing for 10 kilometers per hour or 20 kilometers per hour mean? It does not mean that we put a speed post, right, that says 20 kilometers per hour. That actually is the wrong way to do it. It's actually doing the design. And if you can see these pictures from images from New York that I will show, actually this is designing for slower speeds, narrower lane widths, using these kinds of treatments to protect bicycle lanes. Look, they are now starting to use plants and trees and various kinds of barriers that actually make people slow down and drive. So you can very easily, there's a very clear science of how you can design roads for the speeds at which you want people to drive. It's called designing, that's called design speed. So you can design a store facility that you can make sure that 85 or 90% of the people will drive at that speed, because that's what the road tells them, that this is your design speed. Of course, there will be some crazy people who will try to speed through the streets or honk their way through the streets, but we're not designing for them. Those are the ones who need enforcement. So yeah, just some more images. Also, these wide streets need to have a lot of pedestrian refuge islands like this, where pedestrians can take refuge while they are crossing, so they don't have to run across the full distance. Here's some more examples. These are all from New York. Here's if I'm sure there are places in your city that have parking like this. And look here, they've converted the parking into really nice park and public space. And yeah, New York is full of cars. So I think the argument that there is not enough space, holds good there. I think it's, in the end, the majority of the people are walking, cycling, and if we are designing for the majority, this is what it should be. Here's some examples. These are roads. These are roads, and you can see this seating, public seating, cycle lanes. Some more examples I'm going to show. These kinds of features. So these are bollards. Look how wide the footpath is. It's bulbing out, so pedestrians can come and stay here. They're crossing the road at the most shortest distance. Then there is these sort of islands that are protecting the bicyclists. People crossing here have very safe paths. In our case, if you go to a junction, it's like one football field. You don't know where to go. You can run anywhere, right? It's like you can run like this, you can run like this, and you're basically, instead of chasing the ball, you're dodging cars. But that's the point. The infrastructure should be designed, and with these easy features, that people who get into the intersection should know where to go and should be able to do it in 10 or 15 meter distances, because that's what we can easily safely cross. And this is great. Look, New York built 200 miles of bicycle lanes between July 1st, 2006 and June 30th, 2009. And they have 450 miles of bicycle lanes. That's like close to 700 kilometers. And if you can do it, and if weather is not a problem, it's extremely cold, it's extremely hot for 2 months in New York, and it's extremely cold. Even in the winters, you see people riding. I think there are ways, especially heat is easier to treat, because you can easily plant trees that grow in 3-4 years, and you have a nice shade or a cover. So it works very well. Yeah, so that, and I think, so the main thing to remember is also, I think, not to blame anybody about this, but for many years, the road building science has been about highways. It's about building roads that connect to cities. It's about building fast roads that connect to cities. And so what has happened is, a lot of these highway engineers started building road inside cities. But how we use roads inside cities is totally different, and especially in our cities, it's even more different. We do everything. We live on the street. So when it comes to that, you really need to rethink how you do. And so these street design manuals, and here's New York doing a brand new street design manual. Now the street design manual has things like potted plants, locations for planting trees, specifications for the types of chairs you want to use, specification for the types of tables you want to use. That's a little much, But I mean, I think this is how it's, but the thing is, it's the need to rethink about what streets are. The streets are the biggest public spaces in the city, and really how you design them for people. And we saw from the data that actually the majority of the people are people who are walking, cycling, and using public transport. And this is not just done in New York. Delhi actually recently launched the street design guidelines. This is done by UTPEC, and a lot of new streets that they're building have to now all comply with these guidelines. But I think this has to happen in every city, and then we need to make sure that these guidelines also translate to implementation on the road. Again, just some elements that a street design manual, and these are things that I've been mentioning. One of the big pushbacks to get that saying that the IRC recommends that we don't, we build wide roads and these. So just, I got this wrong. This is a typo. Basically, now there is an IRC 103, which actually provides great details of how footpaths need to be designed, how streetlights need to be done, how bollards need to be designed. So, here are some elements of how a city can start to think about a street design manual and not a road manual, which is, building flyovers and highways. So, traffic calming, on-street parking regulation, medians, bus stops, like we saw, buses are key features. So, on the big arterials, you might provide bus rapid transit, but on other roads, making sure the stops and shelters are well accommodated. Also, a lot of fatalities happen when actually people are trying to get in and out of buses. Plot entrances, this is a standard feature. Everybody with their plot raises it to a height that, suddenly every sidewalk becomes a hurdles game. So making sure that there are standards for plot entrances and, some of the other things. So that's that. And, I'm going to just quickly bring this back to Mumbai. And I think this is the biggest challenge. So, I talked about missing links. So in Mumbai, we recognize that there's a big effort made to complete the network. So we built these big two massive missing links, which are the east-west connectors. So we built a Jogeshwari-Vikhroli link road and a Santa Cruz-Chembur link road. But if you go and look at this link road, this is the Jogeshwari-Vikhroli link road. Again, none of the principles that I talked about are there. There's no priority to buses. If you can see compared to the road width, look at the size of the footpath, look at the obstacles on the footpath, and think about how you will cross this road. Nobody, really nobody, and this is not a short stretch. And what you have on the left is IIT Mumbai. What you have on the right is these shops. I'm sure people from IIT Mumbai went to these shops all the time. And today, to be able to do that, they have to be a combination of 100-meter sprinter and high jumper. And that's the only way they can cross this road. So I think we need to really actively work hard to make sure roads like this don't get built in our city and that they follow the principles that I laid down in my agenda. So that's it. I'm going to stop here and then we'll have lots of time for questions and answers. So, I'm going to answer some questions. I think there was a question on the toll question. I think, free toll for cars, I don't think I think is a bad idea. I think we need to make sure that, we need to charge tolls. I know even Sachin Tendulkar has written to the Chief Minister that we should take away tolls. I think the way tolls are charged, we might want to change because we want to make sure that, we want to make sure that the tolls are charged in a manner that that is most efficient. And with RFID and all of these fancy devices, it has become very easy to charge tolls electronically. So I think we should definitely look at that. But I think, in fact, tolls are a very good way to manage car usage, which we need to. We need to limit car usage in our cities. We need to make sure people are paying the full cost of car usage. And tolls, in fact, you can, instead of sort of taking away tolls, you can actually use these facilities, the toll facilities, to do some sort of congestion pricing, so that in the peak hours you increase the toll and you lower it in the off-peak hours. Or you say that if you are, so one of the simple things that can be done is on the ceiling. If they say that you have more than 3 passengers in a car, then you don't have to pay a toll. That, and if you have less than just in the peak hour, what that will ensure is a lot of carpooling, car sharing type of behavior also. So in fact, you can use tolls very much to regulate behavior. So tolls, to answer your question, tolls shouldn't be removed. And if the concessionaire, or if it's a public-private partnership, if the concessionaire has recovered his money, then the government should keep the tolls, and then that toll money should be, all money that is collected on tolls and parking should be used to subsidize public transport, so subsidize bus transport, and so that's what the toll money should be used, instead of letting them go scot-free. Yeah. C-Link is open to buses, but just one route, and I don't think that they were running it, but they didn't get much ridership. So I'm not sure on the latest status on that C-Link bus route. And rickshaws, I don't think are allowed. As far as I know, rickshaws are not allowed. Neither are two-wheelers. And again, if you look, see, this is the other big question that we need to think about. On the JJ flyover, two-wheelers are not allowed. Think about it. This is a facility that was built with public money, and only 7% of the population can use it. Right? The JJ flyover, you're even keeping the motorcyclists from using it. So, this is, I call it sort of, this is the new untouchability. It is it is the Baba Saheb Ambedkar fought for everybody to access wells. The modern wells are these flyovers and these ceilings, where we try to keep the majority of the people out. Bicyclists are not allowed on the ceiling. Motorcycles are not allowed on the ceiling. Only 7% of the people, which is the minority, are allowed on the ceiling. So, we need to really think, if we're a democracy, we really need to rethink, this whole tolling and preventing, preventing motorcycles and buses and rickshaws from using these facilities. So parking, I think parking, like I answered, if you were to ask me, and I heard a really, recently I heard a very interesting story from a lady in Paris, and it's not even about streets. She was saying that, 30 years ago in Paris, all apartment buildings were built with basement parking. And, which is true in our country now, all the new buildings mostly have basement parking. And she said what has happened in the last 10 years, people have stopped using their cars because they use public transport. There's a lot of cycle use, and the shared bicycling systems, if you are aware of, in Paris. And these basements have become basically ghost dens. They have, this is full of like animals like raccoons and rats. There is a lot of illegal activities, drug trading and all of that. So her recommendation, and I think that's a good recommendation, is that all parking in the city should be built, should be paid, should be public, right? Should be paid, public, and off-street. So we should not allow any on-street parking, or we shouldn't even have any private parking. That's a bit much. I think our DP also makes people build parking, so that's fine. But the main point is that we're going to face these problems. But I think at least as a first step, we need to stop on-street parking, and we need to build public parking and get people to use public parking. Yeah. So. Yeah, there's a question that's saying, should in the Indian context, 40-30 be 40-40 be 40-30. I think that's, I think I would ideally say 30-30, but I think just, I think some arterials can be at 40 kilometers an hour, and I think, and then sort of going down from there would, yeah, and from there that's fine. Yeah. Just going. I'm just going down some questions. So if I'm not answering your question, just hold on. I'll get to it. This is a question from Nitin Garg again, and that was on illegal parking. Of course, I am responded now. This is a question from Sayan Acharji, and the question is how to make a street more lively. Is it traffic or people attending informal activities? See, I think informal activities is a big challenge in our context. I think we need to, I don't think we should eliminate it. I think it's important. It actually gives a lot of life to the street. But we need to find ways to manage it, try to reduce their footprint, find ways in which, we can, make sure that if especially they are sort of cooking or selling food, that they are not, it's like solid waste is managed cleverly. So there are clever ways. Again, in fact, like that's why the New York Street Design Manual, one of the things that New York has started to do is they've standardized the type of trucks or trolleys that you can sell food on. So you can't just set up a stall. You have to do it in a sort of a truck or a car type of thing, or a rickshaw. In India, sort of a rickshaw or a cycle rickshaw, something that you can cart there and cart back. Then they give time of day permits. So there is you can have a breakfast permit, you can have a you can have a knickknacks permit, which is for certain hours. There is a lunch permit, there is a dinner permit. So what they do is they identify spots, and then the same spot they offer to multiple people. So I think there are very clever ways in which you can develop ways to accommodate, make street vendors actually a part of the street design, and I think that's the real way to do it. And this New York Street Design Manual that I showed also is online. You can go see. They actually have these sort of specifications for what type of carts, what type of space, what type of size. And so I think being proactive and and working to make very practical solutions, I think is a good idea. And that definitely traffic makes streets less lively, and people make them more lively. So anything that makes it easier for people to walk, cycle, talk, sit, is all will make streets lively. Question from Gopi Nalluri. Do cars stop and give way to pedestrians when they are crossing at zebra crossings? I think one of the things I'd like to tell you about, I think zebra crossings is actually a very old way of doing this. I think now the idea is to do raised crossings, so you really have to put out tabletops. And I think and that makes it, it slows down the vehicle, and that sort of makes it that much safer for someone to cross. So zebra crossings is a very old school way of doing design. I think tabletops or raised crossings is the more design appropriate method to do it now. So there's a question about irreversible lanes, or what is also called contraflow. That actually, I think I know it's also sort of a typical engineering way of thinking. How do we fully utilize capacity? But one of the big things about contraflow is safety. So the thing is, our brains are wired to look in a certain direction for traffic. So if we are crossing a road, and if traffic is, we look right when we are on one side of the street, and we look left when we are on the other side of the street. So if there is contraflow traffic, I think our tendency is to actually look the wrong way, and then there's the chances of fatalities increase incredibly. There is clear data about it. So this whole reversible lanes is something that we need to carefully use. I think it can be used in certain situations. But I think ideally, especially on urban streets, you should be very careful, because the tendency is that people look in the wrong direction, and there's a fast-coming vehicle, there's a chance of getting hit. The statistics on contraflow lanes from globally are pretty bad from a road safety perspective. So questions from Nilesh Zope and Pawan Mulkutla on what, in your opinion, will get city corporations to implement these changes? That's a question from Pawan Mulkutla. I think it's a slow process. I think few pilots demonstrating the power of doing these things, making sure that the pilots are high quality, making sure that we measure before and after on the pilots, so that we are able to demonstrate the success of these roads. are all also, lots of capacity building, making sure that a lot of attention is to detail is paid when these first few streets are built. I know, the folks in Bangalore are all dealing with the tender sure roads. It's all in the news and it's taking forever, and lots of car owners are, and this is where I think really creating a campaign, making people aware of these kinds of statistics, how building for cars doesn't solve problem for cities, how huge portions of the cities are pedestrians. And there's to be a big campaign about these things to counter this type of pressure. But at the same time, if there is delayed construction, etc., then again there are pressures. I mean, I know we faced this a lot in Indore when the BRT project was done as well. So in that context, I think those things have to be done. But I think once you get a few pilots, then making sure that you do before and after measurements and do all the prachar of its success as much as you can, so that it gets used. Yeah, I think there's a question about there's a question from Nilesh Zope about traffic impact analysis and making it mandatory for new construction. I think that's a great idea. I think again it's a revenue opportunity for the city, and I think has to be done because I think just allowing big sites to come. But I think we have to be careful also of not going the very American way of then in the US what happens is big Walmart comes and then they do impact analysis and then they build one elevated road that connects to the highway or something. That that doesn't solve the problem. I think we need to do it in our context. Pedestrians, impact on pedestrians, cyclists, the amount of traffic entering the street, and then maybe getting them to subsidize some bus route or public transport, or getting them to provide a connector or a feeder to the nearest train station. Those kinds of facilities, making sure that rickshaws can come inside the facility so that you don't see big, all of these rickshaws are accumulating outside the malls, but that they are inside the facility and they can do the pickup and drop. So what I'm saying is we should clearly have a very good sort of traffic impact analysis and a report, but we should also make sure that we provide very Indian solutions which accommodate rickshaws, bicycles, motorcycles, and also connecting them people to public transport. So there's a question on what do we need to do at the policy level to promote use of public transport cycles. So there are two things. One is I think we need to make sure good facilities are built. I think for cycling, absolutely not a single facility in this whole country that's sizable. Not like 3 kilometers. Recently, Akhilesh Yadav went to Netherlands and they've built 4 kilometers of bicycle tracks in Lucknow. It's great. I think it's great, but we should build 40 kilometers and not 4 kilometers, or at least 10 kilometers. There is not a single sort of 10 to 15 kilometer very high quality bicycle lane anywhere in the country. I think it's a shame. I think we need to really need to correct that. Correct that shortfall. As we are sending people to Mars and things like that, I think we need to also build a 40-kilometer bicycle track in one of our big cities. I think that would be a big achievement for the country, something we can all be proud of. But I think the other thing in terms of policy, I think one is all the money, like I said, that gets collected from tolls, from parking, needs to all go into an urban transport fund, and it goes to subsidize public transport. So one of the big challenges is this whole debate on subsidizing public transport. Mumbai, for example, needs about 400 crores for the BST system, and it's like a story every year that they go begging for the 400 crores either to municipal corporation. I think just finding some channels of revenue that from parking and from fuel cess and from tolls, etc., that just gets directed to the BST, so that they can then use and be able to provide service at lower fares. Partly buses are competing with motorcycles. Again, motorcycles need to be made a little more expensive in terms of some sort of a green tax or green cess, some sort of a cess. Motorcycle parking is again free. So I think those things need to be done, and and to make motorcycles and public transport more competitive in cost. So I think that's also another so important thing. The other thing is, I mean, you will be surprised that a bus company like BST or in all the bus companies, actually you pay more taxes on buses, public buses, like taxes like sales tax and whatever state tax and all of that, than on cars. Right, so cars I think is 5-6%, buses it's about 10-12%, which ends up being a big number. So I think we need to completely subsidize. We need to eliminate all taxes on buses used for public transport. I think the other big thing is we really need to today you can import buses, but there is 100% excise duty on importing buses. So I think that's the other thing. I think if we want good high quality buses, we should completely take away this excise duty on importing buses. We should be able to import buses from outside the country very easily. Again, a good statistic that we like to throw around. China makes 150,000 or 150,000 big buses every year. In India, we make 25,000 big buses every year. So there is a big shortage of buses. Every bus company wants buses. So at a policy level, another big thing that can be done is to allow import of buses without paying excise duties. And again, all of these sort of policies have been made for cars. So you can import cars with not 100% excise duty. You can you pay lower taxes on cars. So I think that's another policy level thing that can be done. Another question from Naresh Kurba. It's on one-way streets. One-way streets are really bad. They might be good for traffic management or to move cars quickly. They're really bad for people, for humans, and they're very bad for street activity. It's very simple. All are if your cars sort of then on one-way streets, basically only commerce on one side works. On the other side, it doesn't work. Okay, because typically commerce works only on the left hand side of your cars, doesn't work. The other thing is one-way street significantly increases speeds, and once speeds go, then it just takes away all of the activity of the streets. So Richmond Road and Residency Road, I mean if you are familiar with Bangalore, are great examples of killing fantastic public spaces, roads, streets for the entire city. I mean both Richmond Road and Residency Road, the day they made them one way was the end of those roads. Today if you go there, you barely want to live on either side of it because it's just fast moving traffic all the time, and all the commerce, all the restaurants, etc. has slowly disappeared from that street. So this is a great example of how you actually kill commerce by making the one-way route. So who owns the roads in India? The roads are, I think the roads are owned in India by the municipal corporation. So the municipal corporation has the right to decide how the roads get used. And most municipal corporations today have allowed the motorists to be the kings of the road. And I think we really need to change that phenomenon. Off-street parking is another question about from Shubhayan Ukil about off-street parking solve problem in such areas. I mean, this is basically in 4 areas. In 4 areas. I mean, off-street parking is absolutely off-street parking. I think, and there is one of the questions. The question is that how far should parking lots be? What is walkable distance? I think this is where I think another very important point of view when you start talking about walking, etc., is public health. And there is more and more evidence that says that let me give you some new statistics. WHO says that by 2030, the top 5 causes of death will be cardiovascular disease, upper respiratory disease, lower respiratory disease, some other pulmonary disease, and road traffic fatalities. So the first cardiovascular disease are mostly the biggest reason for cardiovascular diseases is lack of physical activity. It's for not walking, okay? Every human being should at least walk 150 minutes a week. It says that if you walk 150 minutes a week, your chances of getting a heart attack or something is reduced by 70 to 80%. Also, there's also enough evidence that says that if you have public transport accessible, the likelihood of you walking 150 minutes a week is very high, is almost again 80% high. So the fact is that in walking, we just need to make pleasurable walking environments. Walking shouldn't be like it is today, which is more like hurdles and avoiding than actually comfortably strolling or walking. So I think walking environments need to improve, but walking distances, I think people should be fine walking a kilometer. I mean, I would be even, for feeder services to get to train stations, I think 1 kilometer, 1.5 kilometer, people should walk every day that much. I think that will save huge public health costs for the country. And I know not everybody can walk and those kinds of things. So I think within 500, 600 meters we should have facilities. So you can do parking lots, but this obsession about having door-to-door connectivity and parking lots right where I get off, I think we really need to bring this public health argument to the fore, because it is extremely, it's extremely pertinent. I mean, I am in my 30s. I mean, everybody who's in the once you're 5 years out of college, you're dealing with weight issues, obesity issues, health issues, which are more related to lifestyle diseases. Diabetes is one big problem in this country. So, and walking is the solution for all of that. And so actually designing environments for that. So this public, I mean, for a lot of you this public health sort of point of view is also extremely important to bring to the discussion when people say they want point-to-point connectivity, just like owning cars. So, it's like all the people who own cars, they also are all diabetes patients and, have heart issues and obesity problems. So I think we need to, they can drive their car as long as, otherwise, if they don't have this problem, then they're running 1 hour in the treadmill. So, it's the choice between running 1 hour in the treadmill versus walking 500 meters to your car. So, some questions. All right, 5 more minutes. So just, I think just from our perspective, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. We did a safe access manual to mass transit, which was launched earlier this year. So lots of case studies are documented, lots of details about designing these streets have been made on there. The vending example, there's a great vending sort of, not necessarily, but some data about what was done for MIDC Mumbai. There is data from various metro stations across the country. Please take a look at that manual. That is some useful information. We also have globally, I think internationally, we have a traffic safety for bus corridors guide that has been published by the EMBARQ network. That talks, that actually addresses some of these questions that also came up about contraflow and those kinds of things. Safety is a big issue also on bus rapid transit, bus priority systems, and that manual mainly deals with how to make that safer. I think with that I'll stop. Thank you very much for listening to me so intently. I hope I may not have answered all the questions, so if there are some questions that need answering, I'll probably try to respond via email, or Kanika tells us that you can write to hub@EMBARQ India and we'll respond to them. And again, this is an important topic for us. This is an important movement for us that we want to take leadership in as an organization. So if you're interested to participate, we also run the whole Ragi movement. We're an active partner in all of the Ragi events that happen across the cities. Again, that's an important platform to build this message of building streets for people and converting roads that are built for cars to streets for people. And that becomes another platform for you to come participate and then leverage to really do more sort of advocacy and and get more people convinced that cars don't solve mobility in our cities. It's actually building streets for people.
Thank you, Madhav, for the great presentation and the really informative question and answer session. I also want to thank everybody for attending the webinar. It was a pleasure to have you all. After the webinar is over, we'll be sending out an email with the link to the presentation and the webinar recording, which you can access at any time. Our next webinar will be on Bus Karo 2.0. It will be the second webinar in the series, and Prashant Bachu from EMBARQ in India will be presenting it, along with a guest speaker from a partner organization. We'll be sending out the link soon, the invite soon, and you can register for the webinar following the hub link. The link is also available in your chat boxes. Also, please remember to take our exit survey, which will pop up automatically in your browser as you close this window. And it's your feedback is very important for us. And thank you once again, and have a great day. Thanks.